First, though, we're rounding up a hot topic from the week. The White House has officially asked Congress for permission to wage war against ISIS. If that's approved, the resolution would formally authorize the already 6-month-old U.S. military effort. However, the president has said that the military campaign would be limited to 3 years. He's also ruling out large-scale U.S. ground combat operations like we saw in Iraq and Afghanistan. So just how much power should the president have to wage war on ISIS? That's our topic this half hour. We want to hear from you on Facebook and Twitter. Be sure to use the hashtag Fox26for Life. Joining us live in our newsroom is our Roundup panel led by our Fox 26 senior legal analyst, Chris Tridico. All right, Chris, what do you think as this news continues to change day to day, it seems like?
Well, I think that the president's making a mistake here in asking for limited authority. I think that the president should ask for and Congress should give him total authority, and then he should listen to his military people. If he doesn't want to send in ground troops, you don't have to. But you don't want to have to go back to Congress and ask for additional authorization later when it may be too late. And so that's why I think it's a mistake. The politicization of this on both sides, I think, is really it was really horrible for what's going on over there. These people, as I said a few weeks ago, these people are barbarians. We created this situation when we destabilized Iraq, and we have an obligation now to do something about it. And so I think the president ought to ask for full authorization and then handle the war the way he wants. Let me introduce our panel: Jerry Bernberg, the former Harris County Democratic Party chairperson; Jackie Bally, our public policy analyst. I'll get that right one day. Jerry, we'll start with you. No, I won't. We'll start with you this time. You know, there's been Republicans. Orrin Hatch said his request was ludicrous. Lindsey Graham said he ought to send in 10,000 troops. I don't understand that at all. What's the answer here? The president really doesn't seem to there's nothing he can do.
Let me see if I got this right. You want me to tell the president, Lindsey Graham, and Orrin Hatch what they should do?
It is your turn. Go.
All right. So here's the answer to that. We already have the authority. This AUMF has nothing to do with how we're going to wage the war against ISIL for the next 2 years, that is through the remainder of the presidency of Barack Obama. This is only about what's going to happen in the next presidency and thereafter. And I mean, look, so far as I can tell, we've been there fighting for months. And we've been doing it under the authorization of the 2001 resolution authorizing the use of military force, and there's no reason we can't continue to do that. This is a redundant, unnecessary effort to simply show the world, see, we Democrats and Republicans really can get along, and guess what?
We're not.
Looks like we can.
So was it a political move on the president's part?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what he just said. There's nothing in this resolution. I know.
Mark that down.
There's nothing in this resolution that really determined that he had to go to Congress. I mean, there's nothing new that came up. I think he was doing it for cover. He has been circumventing Congress with his executive actions for 6 months. All of a sudden now he's taken something to them that he really didn't have to.
And limiting his authority then further than it already was.
And I do think in part is because at first the general sentiment of the public was we didn't want to get into war, but that is now changing. And so now he's covering himself just to say, okay, if we go into war, he's going to throw it back on Congress. But this was really not necessary. I think we have to do, we do have to step it up. We do have to ramp it up, and we have to prepare the public that when we do, we will be there for many years.
Chris,
it's not something that's going to be quick.
I think you're incorrect when you say this limits him. This doesn't limit him at all, because he still has all the authority he needs under the existing 2001 AUMF that he's been operating under.
But this
does not repeal 2001 AUMF. It keeps it in full force and effect. In fact, he says he'd like to repeal it, but Congress won't let him.
Well, how do you control the two laws? Which one's going to take effect? Because this one is going to say no ground forces at all.
No. First of all, you still have 2001. Everybody agrees you still have 2001. And by the way, it also doesn't end in 3 years. What this one says is after 3 years, come back and let's argue it again in Congress. But that being said, unless and until you repeal the 2001 AUMF, the president can do whatever he wants, including using ground troops, including the whole panoply of tools that could be at his disposal.
So why aren't the Republicans just going to the president saying, let's work this thing out and get something done so we can move on?
I think ultimately you will say that, but I think because this resolution was so weak and his actions were so redundant that they're saying, why are you coming to us with this? I think the one thing that we have seen between the Republicans and the Democrats yes, we need to step it up. We do need to have ground troops. And this resolution doesn't really specify in that area. And I think that's really where you're getting some backlash from.
That's not what we need. What we need is unanimity. We need to show the world that we are all together on the same page and we can work together. And that, I'm afraid, is what's not happening with this resolution.
Because of the politics. Because of the politics, nobody's coming together. You agree with that?
Well, yes, and I think it's because of actions that have happened in the past, and the president should not have gone to Congress. That's really the problem. He should have just done whatever he had to do, because anything that he just said in this resolution was not something that he needed permission from Congress. And especially when there's such a discord between him and the Congress.
I'm out of time, but if he didn't go to Congress, wouldn't they be beating him up about that?
They did. They would have, yeah.
All right, we're going to have to leave it right there. We'll be back next week wrapping up the hottest stories of the week.